Hello and welcome to the Talking NorCal podcast, the official podcast of Active NorCal. I am your host, Zach O'Brien. With me here, as always, it's Bigfoot Bob. How you doing, Bobby?
Bobby Sasquatch is what I thought you were going to go with this
Bobby
time.
Sasquatch.
Yeah, close enough. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. We have a really interesting podcast today. So if people don't know what we do, if one of us is traveling or out of town, usually we'll do a movie review so we can post it, so we can do a podcast every week. And we haven't done one of these in a long time. We've done a bunch in the past, but it's been a while since we did a movie review. And we said, hey, what should we do? And there's this new film that came out in 2024, filmed entirely in Northern California, star-studded cast. It also happens to be the weirdest film I've ever seen.
Yeah, easily the weirdest film I've ever seen.
So today we are reviewing Sasquatch Sunset, filmed entirely in Northern California. We'll get into everything. We're going to go through, why they chose Northern California, why they're filming this. And then, towards the end, we'll do spoilers. But first, this podcast is brought to you by the Active NorCal magazine, the official magazine of Active NorCal. So we have a deal for our audience of the Talking NorCal podcast. This is just if you're listening to this podcast. You can use the code Talking NorCal at checkout and get $10 off a $30 annual subscription to the Active NorCal podcast. We got everything in there. We got how-to guides on where to go in Northern California, where to visit in the national parks in the area, restaurants. We got everything. So subscribe to our magazine. We put a lot of love into that magazine. So subscribe today. Talking NorCal is the discount code. $10 off a $30 annual subscription. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Bob, what the hell did we just watch? But first, the Tahoe's Hella NorCal.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and there are no salad dudes who kick it down in Santa Cruz. Or NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.
Okay, Sasquatch Sunset. Again, we had no idea what we were getting into. I mean, we knew a little bit. This is a silent film. And
it's not silent. There's no talking.
There's no dialogue in it.
There's
no dialogue. So I really knew that. I knew it was dialogue, and I knew that there were certain people that were in it, and I knew it was filmed entirely in Northern California.
When we do these movie reviews, we only focus on movies that are either about Northern California or filmed in Northern California, and this one is both. So it was exciting to have a movie like this available to us to watch. It did debut at Sundance Film Festival in January of this year. So very new movie. Where did you watch it? Oh, you had it on like pay-per-view or something, right?
Well, like DirecTV gave it to me for free. I don't even know how I got it for free, but I just typed it into my Apple TV and it gave it to me for free.
I saw that it was available on Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
I rented it on Prime because I didn't want to watch any ads, and I don't regret that decision, honestly.
Yeah, it was actually pretty easy to find and get for free or for cheap. But really, the start of this is in 2022. What is this? November 2022. We started getting some rumors that Jesse Eisenberg and a film crew were in Humboldt. There's pictures of them at restaurants in the area, in Arcata and Eureka. And we started saying, well, what's he filming? Because this actually happens quite a bit in Humboldt. A lot of films are up in Humboldt because they can kind of get a coastal vibe, or do like Redwood stuff. And we know obviously about the Leonardo DiCaprio film that was just filmed there. So,
which I'm sure we'll do a review on.
We'll definitely do a review on that.
We haven't done Lady Bird, have we? That would be a good one.
I don't think we've done Lady Bird.
Lady Bird, literally, the city of Sacramento, it plays a character, so that would be a good one. But next time.
Yeah, so basically back in 2022, we reported He's coming. He's in Humboldt. We don't know what film he's in, but it might be this weird Bigfoot film that we've heard about. And then, of course, they came out later in the year and they said, yes, it's a Bigfoot film. They give us no information on it other than that. Turn to early 2024 where it debuts at Sundance. We get a trailer which just shows these famous people dressed up as Sasquatch, and you can't even recognize them. So it's like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this, right? So why did they film this Sasquatch film, sort of this this year in the life of a Sasquatch family in Humboldt? Well, if you didn't know, Northern California is the unofficial home of Bigfoot, right? The most famous film of Bigfoot ever taken. It's the Patterson-Gimlin film, which was shot in 1967 in Willow Creek, California. Still sits as the most popular, biggest piece of evidence that Bigfoot exists, right? They have the Bigfoot Scenic Highway, they have a Bigfoot Trail, and then they have the Bigfoot Museum, which we'll get to later in this podcast.
Yeah, some can argue that Bigfoot is from outside of Northern California, but I'd say the vast majority of the people understand Bigfoot's entity as something that isn't around the Northern California area.
Yeah, you see a lot of the Bigfoot hunters or whatever, they'll come up to Humboldt. There's a lot of different places they go in the United States, but this is sort of a place that people go to search. Rob Lowe famously took a camera crew and searched for Bigfoot up in Humboldt. And it all stems from this Bob Gimlin, Roger Patterson video, which you've definitely seen before. It's the person we've actually talked about it a ton on this podcast, where Bob said that's definitely a guy. And that there was actually a whole documentary about it that we talked about on this podcast a while ago, where a guy came out and said, yeah, I was the guy in the costume. So, but the people still stick by that is an authentic film. So that's why they chose this area. It is that sort of remote stretch of redwoods in Humboldt County is the unofficial home of Bigfoot, right?
Now, not only did the location was really important, I think the cast they're all great actors. And this is a movie that I'll pose the question later, what genre you find this movie in. That's a question I have for you, but we'll answer that one later. But I don't know if you know the actors were taken through a Sasquatch school or an ape camp to kind of get them ready for these roles.
They called it Bigfoot Boot Camp. And
I don't know if I think they did a good job physically. Literally my first note was when you're seeing the opening credits, you see them eating leaves, and they're not eating. They're just chewing. It's that's not what an animal eating looks like. Now, that's not the official opening scene. We'll not get, but I'm just saying they did go through a lot of preparation to physically be these parts, and you can be the judge while watching it if they did.
And which includes these massive costumes that they're wearing every day to film. So here are the movie vitals. The summary: a year in the life of a unique family. It captures the daily life of the Sasquatch with a level of detail and rigor that is simply unforgettable. Detail and rigor are certainly good words to use.
Now, one thing that this doesn't mention, but I do think it just kind of brings the film together. It's about 4 total Sasquatches. There is a female, her young child, and then 2 adult males. Now, they don't talk, so you don't really know. You can kind of figure out the dynamic just by watching them, but it's important that it focuses on this. It's not even really, it feels like kind of a family, but really more of
But we don't know who is with who, and it seems like some of them found each other later. Yeah. So directed by David and Nathan Zellner, written by David Zellner. And the cast is Jesse Eisenberg, known famously for playing Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network, among many other things. Riley Keough, I think I'm pronouncing her name right. My wife knows a lot about her. I don't know that much about her, but I do know that she's Elvis Presley's granddaughter.
Did your wife watch this movie with you?
She walked out.
Okay, just
Yeah.
wanted to ask.
Christoph Zajac-Dinek plays sort of like the kid in the family. And then Nathan Zellner, who was one of the directors, plays the alpha male Bigfoot. Rotten Tomatoes score of 73% and Metacritic score of 64%. It had a $1 million budget.
Which I think is low. I mean, it's totally low for a film these days, but
now let me be clear. I found that on Twitter. They didn't release the actual budget. I found that number on Twitter.
I mean, even just filming, editing, and all of the prosthetics that they need, that seems to be like probably close to $1 million these days.
Yeah, I don't know.
The cast cost, like Jesse Eisenberg, like what is he
But
get like $20,000?
My guess is, it says Jesse Eisenberg is friends with the Zellner brothers.
I think this was definitely a passion project.
This is a passion project, 1,000%.
Yeah, this is an artistic movie,
right? And I think when they do these things, they hope that maybe it'll pop off a little bit, or it'll get But yeah, I think Jesse Eisenberg basically did this for free, and probably Riley Keough too. And I hope they did it for free because it was a $1 million budget, and they only grossed $1 million at the box office. Okay, those are the vitals. Did I miss anything?
Of just the overall how to prepare for what we're about to get into.
If you actually really want to watch this movie, I wouldn't prepare at all. Just go and know that it's weird and crazy. And, based on, I think you and I have a certain opinion of this film that we'll get to. But based on Rotten Tomatoes, our opinion might differ from other people. So that's, I don't know if you need to prepare. Just know you're going into a weird journey.
Well, honestly, though, the very few people that have seen this film are probably very passionate about Bigfoot, so they would go to Rotten Tomatoes to vote positively towards this film, right?
And, the interviews I saw with both Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough were, this is the type of movie that we love.
I didn't see any. I wish I saw those.
That, it's just a certain type of person, artist, whatever. They, whether they enjoyed the process of making it or actually want to watch a film like that, I'm not sure. But yeah, so
I will say that without a doubt, probably the most gorgeous cinematography as far as Northern California goes of maybe any other film. I mean, it is.
That's something you can.
It's
prepare.
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
it's very, very beautiful.
It is certainly a love letter to the Humboldt County area, to the redwoods of Northern California. So I absolutely agree. Okay, from now on, we're getting into spoilers.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
Let's hone in our energy, and then let's come in with spoilers when we get back.
Okay. The Talking NorCal podcast is brought to you by the Active NorCal magazine, the premier destination for outdoor content in Northern California. A $30 subscription will get you 2 issues a year, but check this out. I have a deal for you. By using the code TALKINGNORCAL in the checkout, you can get $10 off your $30 subscription.
That is a 33% discount.
33 and a third percent discount. The Active NorCal magazine is awesome. We cover all sorts of great stuff in the issues. We have our winter editions. We have our spring, summer editions. So subscribe to the podcast. Again, it's Talking NorCal is the promo code. Go to store.activenorcal.com, click on magazine, subscribe. It's really great. We appreciate the support.
Listen, if you go outside in Northern California at all, just going outside of a building, you are perfect to read this magazine. There is exclusive content in this magazine that you will not find anywhere else. Again, promo code Talking NorCal gets you a 33 and a third discount off of an annual subscription. Let's go.
If you have left a couch within the past 3 years, you should get this magazine. Once again, promo code Talking NorCal. That's the active NorCal magazine. Now back to the pod. So the opening scene of this film is a graphic sex scene between two Sasquatches.
I think it opens perfectly, honestly. Like it is the weirdest opening of a movie I've ever seen. It's also the weirdest movie I've ever seen. So it kind of sets the expectations appropriately from the get.
It prepares you about the ride you're about to jump into, right?
Yeah.
The journey you're about to go through. It is two Sasquatches, graphically having sex, while the other two Sasquatches stare at them and watch.
Holding hands.
Now, that was a great cinematic scene of them holding hands. And every time I saw that, I'm like, God, that's beautiful. And then it would go back to the view of the two Sasquatches.
Like if you Google the movie, the most of the images that come up on Google Image are, just the picture of the one Sasquatch holding the other Sasquatch's hand. And if you don't know the context, they're literally watching the mother and one of the adults literally have very graphic sex.
Yeah.
Staring at them.
And, after the sex, and this is the type of graphic detail this film goes into, they start like cleaning off with leaves. They start, the type of stuff this can be hard to talk about this.
I know. I told you
the type of stuff that humans do, like cleaning up, cleaning your nether regions.
The post-sex routine, like how to clean yourself, and they have their own routine, and it's strange, but they go into great detail.
And then it kind of goes through. They start walking around the forest.
Maybe a little too graphic, also, but I was watching it with a significant other, and she's like, "Oh my God, they're wieners." So they have
their wieners out the entire movie. Yes, their wieners are out the entire movie.
Yeah,
which is odd.
Yeah, they're tiny though, so you can barely see them. So that's fine. But
so from there, they go. It sort of shows what their daily life is like. They're wandering around. They're looking for food. They're building some sort of structures to sleep in at night. That sort of thing. They're
and every day, a couple of times a day, they beat on things and chant rhythmically, and you're like, what in the hell is going on?
So I read what that was about.
Well, I can kind of figure it out.
That is their call to other Bigfoot. Right. They're looking for other Sasquatches.
So you figured that out later when one of them does it for the rest. I guess we'll get there.
And we'll probably say some bad things about this movie. I thought it was somewhat easy to follow. Of course, you're being thrown into this sex scene and not knowing who's who. You don't know who Jesse Eisenberg is. You don't know what the dynamic of anyone is, and you kind of figure it out.
Yeah, you do.
And
without
dialogue. I'll give them props for that. So anyway, after the opening scene, it sort of shows what they do with their daily lives. And then we get into this berry scene.
The berry scene, I like that you wrote down. So they come upon this bush of berries, and you see them just sitting down and enjoying these berries just together. And then the alpha gets up and walks over to another bush that's, 20 feet away, and the berries look a little different. They look a little old and maybe not so fresh. And he starts eating them, and he starts to really enjoy them. So he starts to devour them, and when the other Sasquatches come to try to get some, he pulls the alpha card and starts to defend it and start to get aggressive. Well, was that your take on it as well?
Yeah, and I didn't know if they were poisonous or if he was like drunk off them. I didn't know.
So he
was acting.
Very good point, because you don't know exactly why he's being defensive.
Right.
Is it that these berries are so good, I am not sharing with anybody? That's what I originally took away from it. Then as the scene progresses, you start to figure it out.
Yes. So after that berry scene, he gets horny.
He passes out, and he wakes up horny.
And he tries to have sex with the female again. She says no. They have a sign for having sex. They have and then, so after he has this encounter with the female, he walks into the forest, into the beautiful Humboldt redwoods.
Clearly drunk.
drunk, something. He is feeling something from these berries.
And
right?
like after he gets into the woods, he starts like foaming at the mouth, which I
starts
didn't
foaming
understand.
at the mouth.
I'm
He's
like,
acting funky.
Yeah.
Then he finds a mushroom, and a very bright red mushroom. He eats that mushroom and starts, belligerently, stumbling through the redwoods until he comes across a mountain lion. And then there's a very poignant scene where the rest of the people come and find him being eaten by a mountain lion.
Now, one of the parts of that scene that we left out is just maybe arguably the most ridiculous part of the scene. After he tries to have sex with the female, he then sees a piece of wood. They're building like a fort for them to live in, the like family, the female, the male, and the baby, the child, we'll say. And the alpha, after the female absolutely declines his advances, sees a piece of wood with a hole in it and starts to play with it with his finger and clearly thinks, I'm going to have sex with this piece of wood.
Yeah.
So he takes a piece of wood, which knocks the rest of the fort down, which gets the other Sasquatches angry, and then it goes into the woods, starts foaming at the mouth.
Right. Yes. I left that part out just because there's so many graphic scenes in this film that I just kind of want to gloss
We apologize.
over some.
But, we're here to report.
So, yes. So the alpha male is eaten by a mountain lion pretty early on in this film. I'd say 20, 30 minutes in, right?
Again, I wrote it down, actually. I think it was 28 minutes in.
Yeah.
The Sasquatch tries to rape a mountain lion wins.
Well, was he trying to... I don't know what he was trying to do with the mountain lion.
He was coming at it with the
yeah.
sex, like, I'm coming into your den. And this was there was no prosthetics on this mountain lion. That was a real mountain lion.
That was real.
And just wild scene.
Yes. So the alpha male is dead pretty early on in this film. Something that I certainly did not expect. I expect them to go forward as a family unit the entire film. So already one of their unit is dead. Then they bury him.
No, okay. So then...
Okay, we don't need to get into super detail on all these scenes. But what were you saying?
The child Sasquatch starts talking to its hand.
Yes.
And the hand leads it into the woods and ultimately guides it to the other Sasquatch, which is like, what in the fuck is going on here? And then that Sasquatch sees the mountain lion eating the Sasquatch, so he starts rhythmically pounding on the trees and chanting like I've seen them done earlier in the film, and the other Sasquatch hear and come to them. And so that is when you realize that they are indeed trying to communicate with other Sasquatches with that rhythmic beating and chanting.
Yeah. So they bury the male and they move on.
Have like a full funeral. Like it was like it was weird.
And then that showed sort of the more human side of this tribe of Sasquatches.
And that was 37 minutes into the film.
Yes. So from there, we start getting into some of the more meanings of this film.
Right after that, we go into summer. So we forgot to say that they really segment this film into the seasons of the year. It starts out spring, and so what we just described was spring, and then it goes to black, summer, and so now we're in summer.
Yeah. So next scene is when they find a road. And, leading up to this, I literally wrote down in my notes, like, is this current time? Is this current year?
You're trying to figure this out because you don't know.
And then they come across the road, and then you know that this is a modern day piece of film.
Now, when I first saw the road, I didn't know if it was paved or not because it was kind of hard to tell. But after you see it for a while, it's clearly like a logging road.
Yeah, it's a small road in the redwoods there, and they freak out and start defecating on the road. That's all I'm gonna say about that. That might be the weirdest scene in the entire film.
No, it definitely is.
Yeah, so here's a fun tidbit a tidbit I was gonna say later, but famously, people walked out of this film during the Sundance Film Festival. This is exactly when my wife walked out of the room, is when they started defecating on the road. I have no idea why they're doing it. It never is explained in the film. I don't know how they would explain it. I don't know why they did it. We'll move on from there.
I had something to say, but it's probably better I just keep it to myself. Can I just, maybe something I Googled? I Googled this morning what animals use their breast milk to mark their territories, and the answer is there's none, not one, not in the history of animal kind has any animal used their breast milk to mark their territory. So that's in the scene.
Yeah.
So
it's very graphic and very weird. Next, we get to the river death scene. So they come across, by the way, at this point, so they found the road, and they're now starting to find X's on trees. Anyone that goes into the woods knows that when you mark an X on a tree, that's for the most part, it's for tree removal, right? So we know that they're starting to get into territory of more humans. So we get to this scene. It's a cut down tree sitting in the beautiful Eel River. That color of the river, you cannot mistake it from any other river on the planet. The Eel River, there's this cut down tree. Long of the short, Jesse Eisenberg's character gets stuck under the tree and drowns to death. So
it's tough. It's tough to watch. It's
tough to watch. They try to save him. They can't save it.
They don't really know how to do it. They don't know physics. They don't, and so you feel bad.
Yes. So this is halfway through the film, maybe a little bit past halfway. So now we're literally just left with the mother and the kid. The mother and the kid are now moving on. The two males, the alpha male and the Jesse Eisenberg male, are gone. And
at this time, the female showing signs of being pregnant also.
The female
she's got a little bit of a belly.
Is now showing signs of pregnancy. There are scenes with her smelling her nether regions, and it is I thought it was pretty obvious to begin with. She's trying to see if she's pregnant, right? But now she's starting to show. She's starting to get a little belly, and it's actually becoming very obvious. It's almost like when you see a dog who's like kind of like the belly is a little bit bigger, or any animal. I've seen dogs mostly. So yeah, we have a pregnant Sasquatch female with her kid walking through the Humboldt Redwoods. Next scene that I had written down is they find a campsite in the woods, and again, this film starts out, they're in the very remote redwoods, and they're starting to move into more human territory.
It's a bright red tent.
And
just a whole campsite.
They find a like a beatbox, a stereo. They find a cell phone, and they're very curious. They were eating the foods. I think there were like gummy worms they were eating or something like that.
You can start to put together what time this is now taking place too, because you see how advanced the camping equipment is. And it maybe not like today, but it's not too far back. There's like an igloo cooler, and it's not like the best top of the line equipment, but it probably was in like 2006. Yes.
Then they end up destroying the campsite. They get mad. They destroy the campsite.
What made them mad? Oh, so they hit play on the cassette player, and they listen to the music, and then all of a sudden they're like mesmerized by it, and then all of a sudden they get furious, and they just get they thrash the camp.
Again, not sure of the meaning. Just obviously they're clashing with humankind. Then there's another graphic scene, the birthing scene, where the female literally gives birth to a mini Sasquatch. It's, again, graphic.
One of the most ridiculous parts of the movie is that the child is there, to help to assist the mother.
Yeah.
And the child stands behind the mother like it's a quarterback in shotguns.
He was
It was like 15 feet back with its hands up like it was...
I thought he was going to catch the baby.
It's what it was. Literally had its hands up like, and it's like, this is ridiculous. Like this is the part of the movie that somebody is calling a comedy.
Right. And then right after she gives birth, there's this, by the way, that little baby Sasquatch was cute as hell. It was very weird looking, but it was cute, and it was funny how they did it.
Birth, by the way.
If you're calling this a comedy, I would say what that baby looked like was the most comedic part to me. I was like, man, maybe this is some sort of weird comedy. And then this mountain lion comes up. We don't know if it's the same mountain lion.
Probably.
It probably
I guess we're
is.
assuming it was.
And she throws the umbilical cord connected to some sort of piece of her biology. The wolf, or not the wolf, the mountain lion eats it, runs off. Then they get in it. The whole family, baby, kid, mother, they're walking through. It's winter. There's all sorts of stuff that, I'll skip through. And finally, the final scene, they walk up to a statue of Bigfoot.
Well, you see buildings and you're like, oh, I wonder where they are. I wonder like what kind of an area this is. And then you start to see more buildings and you're like, okay, is this like a logging area? There's like a lot of old equipment. It could, and it's like, is this like a museum? And then there's the big reveal.
The big reveal. I knew as soon as I saw the Bigfoot statue, I knew where they were, because that is the famed statue out front of the Bigfoot Museum in Willow Creek. And the final shot of the film is the 3 live Sasquatches, the mother, the young baby, and the kid, standing essentially looking at the camera in front of the Bigfoot Museum. Cut to black.
Weirdest movie I've ever seen.
All right, that's it. So weird. Okay, so that's
it's tough to get through. Here's the deal. I hadn't done a podcast for a movie in a bit, and so I took diligent notes. And had I not been paying that close of attention, if I had picked up my phone one time and got distracted, I would have had to rewind the movie, because like you could easily, if you're not paying very, very close attention. Now, it was engaging, but I was trying to stay engaged, and
it was an hour and a half.
If you go to the bathroom and you come back, you could have messed a ton.
As you can tell by what we just went through in these scenes, it was actually a jam-packed hour and a half. The hard part is just filling time when there's no dialogue, right? Like, but you're trying to figure out, what are they saying? What's going on? So, it does keep you somewhat engaged, but, there are places where I'm like, what the hell am I watching? Let me get out of here. But we'll leave our reviews for the end. So I put together a few fun tidbits that I found in the movie, and I don't know if you have any others. I mentioned the walkout at the Sundance Film Festival. It's so funny because I saw a interview with Jesse Eisenberg, and he said, it was so great at Sundance, people coming up and telling me how much they loved it. But maybe that's like a metaphor for this movie. It's like you either love it or you hate it, right? Like it's either like beautiful and this commentary on society, or it's this graphic, weird piece of shit, right? So, yeah. So I mentioned the walkout at Sundance. The song played at the end of the movie is sung by Riley Keough herself.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, Elvis Presley's granddaughter, and who also plays the female in the movie. They spent hours every day in makeup. Just the face itself took an hour and a half.
Yeah, you could tell. It was well done.
It was well done. I also saw an interview with Riley where she was talking about there would be like truckers driving past them in the redwoods in Bigfoot country, and they'd see these like 4 Sasquatches in a film crew, and they'd say, "What the hell is going on?" I thought that was funny. Like,
that'd be
just
wild.
Imagine waiting for them to set up a scene, and you're wearing this outfit, and there's people coming by. It's interesting. All the animals from the film. So there's a turtle we find, which ends up biting one of their tongues. There's a skunk, there's a badger, there's a snake, there's a possum. All of those are animals from Turtle Bay. The Turtle Bay Exploration Park in Redding. Shout out to them, a great place in Redding. All those were brought in by Turtle Bay and the handlers. I don't know about the mountain lion because
I'm sure it's not from Turtle Bay.
I've been to Turtle Bay plenty of times. I've never seen a mountain lion. So I don't know where they got the mountain lion, but the rest of them, I saw like the lady who's the handler at Turtle Bay. I saw that she was helping them out with all the animals. By the way, you could tell these were like pristine animals. Like,
yeah,
they weren't like the beat up animals you typically see in the outdoors.
And yeah,
but I guess that's what you do when you're filming a movie. You mentioned earlier they trained with a mime to act like Bigfoot, and they created their mannerisms as like half human, half monkey, which we'll probably get into this further later. It's a choice. It's a choice that I don't know if it worked as well. I never really thought of Bigfoots as monkeys. I don't know about you.
I think they had more human mannerisms than monkey mannerisms.
Yeah, I just thought the monkey mannerisms were a little distracting for myself. And then we have this quote from director David Zellner talking about filming in Northern California. I'll just read it here. While Eureka and Arcata were their base hubs, David Zellner said, "We went pretty much in every direction. It's one of the most beautiful places on Earth, and we really wanted the film to have epic landscapes. From the start, we knew we wanted to shoot in those primordial old-growth redwood forests. It was still very difficult. That's why not many people shoot up there. It's hard to get to. It's hard to get on location. Just navigating the woods is a challenge on its own. But then you're adding a whole crew, people in costume, makeup effects, and all those sorts of things. But that was important because we really wanted to ground this world where we're creating with a sense of naturalism. That's why we didn't want to shoot on a soundstage." So he's essentially talking about what we call the redwood curtain. It's hard to get through those suckers. Like, those redwoods are thick. They are hard to get on locations. Those hikes are long. The mountains can be tall. So he basically was saying it was more difficult than they thought.
Yeah, you have to earn those views, you know, and the film production crew, I'm sure, went through those trials and tribulations, but it was worth it. Like, that was easily the best part of the film, is how beautiful the cinematography was. It was gorgeous. And like, there was a part where they were just sitting on a lookout, just like overlooking. And like, that probably is a very popular hike. They probably had to hike a good way to get there. They had to bring, $100,000 cameras with them. Probably not 100,000 if their budget was only $1 million. But yeah, it's commendable.
Yeah, there are some great sites, some great scenes that are clearly within like state parks. I know they did like some private land where they filmed. They did some public land. So I never heard of like closures in any of the Redwood National Park or any of the state parks. So I don't know how they did that without coming across hordes of hikers that would see them. I don't know. And maybe people did, who knows? But yeah, apparently it was difficult to maneuver through that. Okay. So let's get into our thoughts a little bit about this film, because I know we have a lot of them. And we sort of wrote down some questions just to keep us on point here. So my big question that I wrote down while I was watching this, why the hell did they make this movie?
Yeah, it's an artistic way of just bringing the human family day-to-day thought about how a Sasquatch lives to light. Did it need to be done? Maybe not. But was it done perfectly? No. Why did they make the film? They thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were trying to set out to accomplish anything. I mean, were they trying to humanize the Bigfoot?
So I actually wrote down the LA Times critic, Amy Nicholson, said, "It holds up a mirror to our own narcissism." What the hell does that mean? Look, I get what they're saying. They're saying, nature and humans colliding, and nature is this detailed graphic. I've used that word 100 times. The graphic thing that, and then humans are this more like clean, pristine, and they're bashing. I just didn't get that. I didn't feel that while I was out there. I think part of that was the fact that they were sometimes unbelievable as a Sasquatch. This family, to me, felt very timid, and that's not how I view Sasquatch. I view Sasquatch as alpha, king of the jungle, king of the forest type thing.
That's a good stance. Even the alpha Sasquatch is a kind of a pussy.
Yeah.
And so you're right. I didn't even think about that. And you don't need to be an alpha male and everything, but yes, you're right. When it comes to the Sasquatch, that's kind of what our impressions of a Sasquatch is, male or female.
They're just trying to bring out the emotions of a Sasquatch, and I don't think of a Sasquatch as an emotional creature. You know, you look at the mountain lion throughout this, and the mountain lion's like, I'm eating you, and I don't care about it, and that's how I think about a Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know what message they were trying to convey. I think it was this artistic, I don't know, this piece of art that they were trying to create that, to me, misses the mark in a lot of ways. Yeah. Great showcase of the North Coast. Like we mentioned it, Eel River, Humboldt Redwoods, everything. I don't even know if we have anything else to say about that.
It basically plays a character in the film.
It was the views. That's actually a really good point. It plays a huge character in the film. The views, the beautiful nature of the scenery, along with the soundtrack, I thought was really good and really poignant. So that was a very good point of the movie. It did feel slow. I said it earlier, it was fast. A lot happens in this film, but it does feel slow in some spots.
I mentioned to you, there were several times I paused the movie to see how long was left and was like, really? We still have this much left?
Yeah. The film is disgusting and downright graphic. We've mentioned that again.
It's hard to even talk about. Doing a podcast about it was like questionable, but here we are.
My question to you is, a lot of people online were saying that it's like this comedy, that it's like funny, and a lot of people were saying they were cracking up. Did you find it funny?
So I love that you're bringing this up, because one of the two things that I wanted to Google this morning, because I thought about it, was what genre does this movie fit into? Now, if you go to IMDb, it lists the genres as being action, adventure, and comedy. Sure, you have to list comedy because it's just so ridiculous.
It's a drama.
Yes, absolutely. There's
half the family dies.
So
half the family dies. Their world is being torn apart by humans. They don't know how to do it. A mountain lion almost ate a baby. Like, it's a drama.
So I thought you had to submit to like Sundance as like through a genre. I was also trying to find like awards that they may have won to find what awards and what genre they find themselves in.
I think it's 0.
But yeah, it's a tough watch.
Agreed. I didn't find it funny.
Do I find it funny? No, I didn't laugh. I thought it was absurd,
and I was shocked the entire time. I felt if I was laughing, I was laughing because I was uncomfortable. Were the plot twists predictable, surprising? I'd say yes.
The first one, okay, so again, we've already spoiled. When the first male dies, I was like, oh, okay. And then it's easy to predict the second male was going to die. I was surprised when the first male died, but as soon as the first male died, I was like, oh, the second male is definitely going to die. And I could see that coming,
I didn't see either of them.
I couldn't see the first one coming, but after the first happened, I could see the second one coming.
Yeah, so that one thing the film does good is it sort of twists and turns in ways that you didn't think. I thought they were going to go forward as a complete family unit the entire film. Halfway through, half of them are dead. So, and I'm sure that's some sort of commentary on nature in general. How were the actors' performances?
They were up pretty good. Again, the first thing you see is them chewing on leaves, and they were not believable chewing. And like, that was the very first impression of the film I had right before the sex scene. But I'm sure that they gave it their all. After that, chewing on leaves, I really don't have a lot to say they did poorly, other than just what they were doing in the film, like the absurdity of the things that they were doing. They shouldn't have had to act in those, but I think they did pretty well.
Yeah, again, I think the choice to make them monkey-like was it's not the actor's faults, right? But that choice ultimately threw me off on every single performance. I just did not like it. I thought the ooh, ah, ooh, ah, like that just threw me out. To me, Sasquatch doesn't sound like that. So that's, I didn't love it. What did you think about the ending? Did it satisfy you?
Well, no. I mean, I mean, no, it's not a satisfying ending. It's not like, oh, it's like, oh, this is how we're going to end it. All right.
Yeah, they had to end it somehow, right? And I thought it was, again, they're trying to bring together the human society with the Sasquatch or the natural, order. And
what about, here's I think this would have been a better ending. The baby that was just born, Sasquatch, dies. And somehow the mother dies. And you're left with just the child. And it ends with the child, now an adult, just walking straight into the redwoods all by itself. Fade to black. Then, because you don't hear about Sasquatches together. You hear of an individual, a lone walker in the woods, and it ending with them walking into the woods as a lone Sasquatch. That makes more sense to me.
I think it was satisfying to see that that famous museum, the Bigfoot Museum, just because, personally I like that place.
I mean, and the statue out front is burned. It's part of the history of Northern California.
The statue is great. It's weird. It's a weird ending. I don't know if any part of this movie was satisfying, so I don't know if that word works. Did you feel an emotional connection with the characters?
I did when Jesse Eisenberg's character died. Like, I felt for the family, because it's like, this is the male. This is the one that's going to be providing for you. And they didn't know how to save its life. And, then they like fell asleep close to the body, woke up, and they see birds pecking at it, and they like got pissed. Like, there was an emotional connection there. I didn't cry, but I think they did a good job at portraying emotion of losing a loved one in the animal kingdom.
Yeah, there was a scene that we didn't mention where the baby almost dies. And, for me with a kid, that was the only real emotional connection I had during the entire film, where she's shaking her baby, and finally the baby wakes up. Okay, rate the movie 1 out of 10.
Oh, I guess I should have thought about this before. 5.
For the mere fact that it's the Redwoods, I'll give it a 3. To me, this movie missed the mark in so many ways.
Both of our significant others could not watch the film. It was tough for us to get through. As soon as Zach finished, he texted me, "That's the weirdest movie I've ever seen." And as soon as I finished it, I text Zach, "That movie."
Now, if you ever are looking for something to talk about with your friends, just watch this movie together, because there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot of shock factor. But, it's almost like going to one of those like websites where they do disgusting like things. It's purely like graphic, and that's the only emotions that I really felt from it. And
grossed out, awkward.
I just did not think that they did Bigfoot enough justice. I think they put Bigfoot as this, and I get like the alpha male was sort of the stereotypical Bigfoot, but he like his alpha masculinity almost is what killed him.
They're trying to put nuance to that, and it's like, why?
And honestly, alpha masculinity helps this isn't human society. I know they're trying to make this emotional connection. I don't even know what you call it. I don't know if it's like woke or something. It's like they're trying to say it's like Bigfoots have feelings too. I just didn't like that. Like knowing animals going into the woods, like of course they have feelings, quote unquote, but look, it's nature. They do horrendous, crazy shit, and they live with it without, blinking an eye. So that's where I landed on the film. Anything else? What did we miss?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I do appreciate it as a piece of art. Like I can just imagine Jesse Eisenberg listening to this and being like, these guys are just talking shit. We can appreciate a film with art. This film felt almost like a mockery. It felt like Sure, you're trying to add nuance and artistics and emotions to a very alpha dominating animal, if you will. I think a lot of it was unnecessary. I think that the scenes that they may have felt where you were supposed to laugh at, I just felt awkward in, and I don't think I'll ever watch it again.
Oh, no way in hell would I ever watch that movie again. It's funny. I did see a review online that said, a guy said, yeah, you're probably not going to watch this a second time. I also, again, I saw a lot of these interviews with Jesse Eisenberg, like praising the film, and I just don't know if he's too close to it, that he just doesn't understand that it's bad, or if he was trying to like sell the film for selling the film's sake. But yeah, it's not good. It's a bad movie. It is. I don't get the point of it. I don't get the choices they made. The redeeming factor and the entire 3 points out of 10 that I gave. It's not even a
redeeming factor. Like, yeah, it's the only positive takeaway.
The only positive take is it's in the Humboldt redwoods. It's gorgeous. We get to see places that we know. It's awesome like that. Otherwise, the movie was terrible.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that's it. That's a quick podcast. It's funny because, when we chose this film, we can't go back on it. Like, we're just like, we're gonna do this film and we're gonna stick with it. So,
but as soon as both of us finished watching it, it was like, what a terrible decision choosing this film was.
Well, I don't. Doing bad films is not a bad thing, and
we do it for you, the audience.
We watch this film so you don't have to.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Sasquatch Sunset
sucked.
Was a terrible film. Watch it if you dare. It's crazy. It's weird. And thank you for listening to the Talking NorCal podcast. Once again, subscribe to the Active NorCal magazine using the code Talking NorCal to get $10 off your $30 annual subscription.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod.
Wherever you get your podcasts, right? Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, we're everywhere. Go check us out on our YouTube page. You can see our full episodes in Talking NorCal YouTube page. Also, you can see the clips of these episodes on the Active NorCal YouTube page. Follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram actually grew quite a bit over this past week. It's like doubled in the past week, so that's good. We weren't working. We just started, so we're over 1,000. That's great. We're gonna. I think we'll get to 10,000 in the next 6 weeks. I think we could get to 10. I really do. So follow us everywhere. We're trying to just make a lot of these clips easily digestible for modern society folk who don't have long attention spans, and that's fine. Anyway, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Sasquatch Sunset. Crazy.
And remember,
stay active.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to kick it down in Santa Cruz. Or NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal.